What's up guys, my name is Ace, and you read the title right, skill-based damage is real. However, it's not quite what you think, and I'll be sharing exactly what's going on here, including some testing showing this off. But before we do that, I'm going to quickly squeeze in another topic here that I didn't feel was worth splitting into a separate video, and this is with the Season 4 update. You guys might remember that when you were in the weapon select screen, they created new ads that appeared on the top of the list of your weapon builds, and it would show off all the blueprints you could buy in the store for that gun. This obviously received a ton of backlash in the community. I myself ranted about this a little bit on Friday, and yesterday they removed it and then they tweeted this. A UI feature test that surfaced select store content in the loadout menus was published in the Season 4 update in error. This feature has now been removed from the live game. And I mean, come on, I don't think anybody's buying that. If you read the replies to that tweet, nobody's buying it. I don't believe that's the case either. I think this is the type of thing where they implemented this feature. It did not go very well. It received pretty much universal backlash, especially combined with the fact that the update itself was quite a bit of a mess. And then due to the backlash, they're trying to play it off now as if they didn't mean to implement it. They were just working on it in the background. Now, either way, even if they aren't straight up lying about this, which again, I think they are in this case, at the end of the day, I am glad to see that our criticism and backlash worked and they have removed this feature. Obviously, I don't think it should have been there to begin with. It shouldn't have even been something they were working on for a mainline game, because this is the type of thing that you would expect in like a free-to-play mobile game. But that's the first bit of news there. Now let's talk about skill-based damage. It has been found in the code that skill-based damage does exist. However, it's not the skill-based damage many people have been claiming has been in the game all along, that somehow evades discovery anytime somebody actually tries to test for it, despite the fact that this is something that's very easy to test for. But this skill-based damage that was found in the code by Hey I'm a Lakes, a known data miner in the community, is skill-based damage ratio bot to human. So this is specifically referring to the bots in the game, and I believe primarily the bots in Warzone. This could also be the case in multiplayer, but we don't play against bots in public matches in multiplayer, so it's not even really worth worrying about. This is primarily something that we're interested in for Warzone casuals, where we have bots in actual public matches. And with these strings, you can see that various difficulty levels, which are no surprise, of course, is going to be different difficulty levels of the bots, although there are 5 difficulty levels, not the usual 4 that we would expect. Usually it's recruit, regular, hardened, and veteran. But that's not really all that surprising, since the bots in Warzone casuals don't behave anything like the bots that you would see in like a multiplayer private match if you added bots to the game. They have very different behaviors overall. But then on top of that, there is mention of this skill-based damage ratio. And as expected, if a system like this were present, it's extremely easy to test for and prove. It only took me a few minutes to prove that this exists, and I could show that off for you guys today. But let's take a look at this. I dropped into some Warzone casuals here, and the first thing I found funny is I got this bot to kill me, and at no point here did I let myself heal. He killed me with a PU-21 LMG, and it took him 20 shots to kill me from a fully armored state. And obviously, since we can see this from my perspective, you can see I'm not using a stim shot. I didn't armor up in between. There's absolutely no question about him shooting me through some thin piece of cover or something like that. And I'm obviously nowhere near a damage range drop-off point, so there's no question about how much damage he should be dealing to me in this situation. So with the PU-21 at this range, at most, even with the lowest body multiplier, this should have taken 12 shots to kill with the PU-21. And that obviously wasn't the case here, so that immediately shows that there is a damage reduction when this bot is shooting me. However, you can see it much more obviously in the Gulag, because you can see the actual damage values per shot, because we have health bars at the top. And with the Strider 22 pistol that we're using here, the only 3 damage values we should be seeing per shot are 30 damage to the lower torso and below, 45 damage to the upper torso and arms, or 72 damage to the head. And yet, we can see the bot dealing 18 damage, 27 damage, 17 damage, 24 damage, 37 damage, 21 damage, and 32 damage. So not only is there a clear damage reduction, because you can also see anytime I shoot the bot, I'm dealing the exact amount of damage that I should be dealing, given the gun and the range and the body multiplier. But on top of that, the amount of damage the bot is dealing to me is changing on a shot-by-shot basis. So there's some real-time calculation going on. I don't know why it's being affected on a shot-by-shot basis in particular. They do mention this is a damage ratio. So I thought perhaps the more damage I deal to the bot, the more damage they'll deal back to me. But that doesn't appear to be the case, since this was changing even when I didn't deal any damage in between those shots to the bot. So it almost seems random, but always reduced, never extra damage. So there we go. That's 100% confirmation. Skill-based damage is present, at least in Warzone casuals, specifically with bots dealing damage to human players. Now, this was just the first basic test that I did here. This just took a few minutes for me to test and confirm. I would be very interested in seeing how this scales depending on the skill level of the account. To be clear, my account in Warzone probably has quite a low MMR because I almost never play Warzone, and when I do, it's Warzone Casuals usually, and I don't believe Warzone Casuals has an impact on your MMR. Maybe I'm wrong on that, maybe it does, but in either case, I don't believe my account has a super high Warzone MMR. So I'd be curious to see what happens if like a top level player were to do this testing. I highly doubt the bot would be dealing any additional damage compared to what his gun is capable of dealing, but I'm curious to see if it does deal the full amount of damage to a high MMR player, or is it still dealing less than expected damage, but more damage than it would deal to a very low skill player? Perhaps that's something I'll investigate more in the future, but now it's time to share my thoughts on this system. And honestly, in the way that it's being used here for Warzone Casuals in particular, only affecting bot versus human interactions, I actually don't mind this at all, and I think it is a pretty good solution to having bots in the game, especially when looking at the damage and time to kill values that you tend to experience in Warzone. I think it's a great way to not only scale the difficulty level for lower skill players that are wanting to play casuals to get a basic feel for the game, maybe build up some confidence so they can eventually move into the real Battle Royale games, assuming that mode is present, which at the moment we don't have BR solos non-casual, which is a different topic that a lot of people are not happy about, very understandably so. But I think this is a great way to scale the difficulty, so for those really low skill players that are just trying to get a feel for things, they're not just going to get destroyed by the bots, at least not on a consistent basis, because the bots are dealing a lot less damage to them. Whereas for higher skill players, presumably the bots are dealing more damage than what they're dealing to lower skill players, so they're offering a bit more of a challenge, while still of course being bots and pretty easy to deal with, but it just scales up that difficulty level a little bit for those players. In addition to this, I like the idea of having this reduced damage received from bots because it really doesn't take that many shots to kill a player in Warzone, and therefore for those players that are unaware of that bot's position before the bot shoots them, it just prevents those situations where they immediately have their armor peeled off before they can even react by just a bot. At least for the lower skill players, it can be used to give a whole lot more time to react to that situation, because it's one thing to tune the bot difficulty to make them maybe a bit less accurate or react slower, for instance. But in those cases, if they're dealing full damage and they've only got a sniper rifle and they manage to hit that sniper rifle shot, or another thing I noticed, if they're using a burst gun like the AEK, for instance, that deals like all of its damage in a really quick burst, I have noticed a lot of times bots can be surprisingly deadly just because they happen to hit that full burst of damage, and that's enough to get you really low on health almost instantly. So this damage reduction will allow those players to have a bit more time to react and not immediately find themselves in a very desperate situation with no armor and very low health. And I do think it is a better method of scaling that difficulty versus bots compared to just impacting their accuracy or reaction time. So in my opinion, at least, this is a perfectly acceptable method of using skill-based damage. And it's what the original Skylanders patent for skill-based damage was all about, is PvE, where you're playing a co-op experience with mixed skilled friends, and it's used to scale the difficulty and the level of challenge each of you are experiencing to your skill level, so you're getting the right amount of challenge while fighting against the exact same enemies in the exact same game. So as long as it stays in specific modes like Warzone Casual that are made to be a welcoming experience, they're not designed to be taken very seriously or played very competitively, and as long as it always remains bot to human only and never human to human, I'm actually fine with that implementation. Now I know some people responding to this are saying, well, now that they have it present for bots, what's to stop them from using this against real players? Well, I would say the main thing is it's extremely easy to see and prove for yourself, and if this ever did come out to be used against real players, and it were proven without a shadow of doubt with proper testing methodology, then I think there would be mass outrage in the community and it would be a very big issue for them. So I think that alone is probably preventing them from implementing this on a player versus player basis. This is something they easily could have implemented at any time over the years, but they haven't yet, and I don't believe they're going to anytime in the foreseeable future, but obviously something to keep an eye on because it is in the game, but it's currently only in place on a bot versus human interaction basis. If it ever does go beyond that, I'll be able to prove it quite easily, quite quickly, and I'll be the first to have that video out proving it without a shadow of doubt. I'll get a ton of views on that. It will absolutely be in my best interest to prove that if it ever does come to the game. And there we go. This is where I want to hear from you guys in those comments down below. First off, how are you guys feeling about the first thing we covered here today? The fact that they apparently accidentally added those ads into the game. Do you guys think it was actually an accident or not? And then second, what are your thoughts on how they're using skill-based damage in the game in Warzone Casuals with bots versus human players? Do you guys think this is a good idea or not? Would you guys rather not see this at all? Do you think bots should deal the exact same amount of damage that players deal with the exact same gun in the exact same situation? Just let me know all of those thoughts down below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated. And don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.